Hi, I'm Paul Gilbert, and welcome to Strategic Leadership. I'm so glad you could join us today. Today, we're talking about one of my favorite subjects, Sun Tzu's Art of War, and how we apply this ancient text to managing organizations today, to leadership, to innovation, to all these things that are important for success in any organization today. It all is in this little book written 2,500 years ago. But before we get into that, let's talk just a moment about why we have this channel. If you have any organization that has a worthy mission, a goal that is worth pursuing, it's really important to spend some time thinking about leadership and strategy so that you can really be about that business in the most effective way. Organizations are how we achieve big things, how we've achieved big things from the beginning of time as we get together in groups and we achieve a common goal. And that's what we're going to be talking about today and touching on so many interesting things. So a little bit about Sun Tzu and Sun Tzu's Art of War. This book was written 2,500 years ago, about 500 BC in China by a general named Sun Tzu. And it is really the first and most foundational work on strategy. And it really is such an interesting document. I've read it many times. The first time I read it, I was really put off by the style. But as I read it a second, a third, a fourth time, it started to make more and more sense. And I realized that what Sun Tzu was talking about 2,500 years ago on the plains of China were exactly the same kind of issues that any and every organization deals with today. And that makes it kind of exciting to think about. So what strategy really is about is how to achieve your goal in the external environment that you operate in and how to be really effective in that. Sun Tzu says strategic skills come from the following 5 elements. And let me tell you what those 5 elements are and then kind of what my modern translation of those things are. So he lists philosophy, climate, ground, leadership, and methods. So let's back up a little bit and put those into modern context. When he talks about philosophy, he's really talking about organizational culture. What is the philosophy or the culture of that organization that you're operating in? When he talks about climate and ground, well, there he's quite literally talking about climate and ground. He's a general, and he is thinking about, whether you're going uphill, downhill, whether it's raining or not. I translate that into basically the competitive environment that you're operating in. And I think if he were around today, he probably would agree that it's climate and ground is really what is the environment that you are operating in with your group. The next one is leadership. Well, that takes no translation. Leadership is leadership. Leadership and management is very important. He talks a lot about it. And then the last one he talks about is methods. And I translate that into sort of organizational structure and innovation and operations, those things that are the things that you do and how you do them and whether they are effective or not. So those are the ways he thinks about it. In previous episodes, we've talked about strategy and vision and mission statements. And Sun Tzu understood this perfectly well 2,500 years ago. Sun Tzu says, command your people in a way that gives them a higher purpose. And if you do that, you can lead them basically to anything. So command them in a way that gives them a higher purpose. That is a mission statement. That is a vision statement. And that is some very old advice on how to make your organization effective. He is very clear on that. Then he talks a lot about management. He says, the commander must be smart, trustworthy, caring, brave, and strict. So also in previous episodes, we've talked about John Maxwell's 5 levels of leadership. So let's break down a few of these elements that Sun Tzu is talking about. He talks about being smart. Well, if the way I would translate that is the third level in Maxwell's level of leadership is production, that you are able to produce for your organization. He talks about trustworthiness. That gets to the second level, which is permission. People will follow you willingly at that state because you are trusted. He talks about caring. Caring, I would translate into Maxwell's people development, that you are showing that you are empathetic and caring and responsive to the people that you are working with. And then finally, he has brave and strict. And brave, I think, means the ability to take risks. And if you are not willing to take any risks, then you are not going to gain much in any environment. So you have to have that, and that takes some willingness and some bravery to be able to step out and try something new. Strict, I don't like the word. It has a very negative connotation today. I would translate that more into being disciplined, that you approach your work in a professional and disciplined sort of way. He talks about organizational structure. So he says, you have military method. They shape your organization. They come from your management philosophy. You must master these. So he's literally saying they shape your organization. And I'm saying that that really means organizational structure, which is, if you look at it on a chart, the shape of your organization. It comes from your philosophy and management style, and your organizational structure grows from your organizational culture and philosophy in terms of how that is structured, how hierarchical it is, whether they're cross-functional teams, all that kind of stuff. He's saying that this is an important thing to master and understand and use so that you don't allow organizational structure just to be some infrequently thought about thing that is on a chart, but it actually is important and you do it in a deliberate sort of way. Sun Tzu talks a lot about the need to study organizational management. Now, he doesn't use those terms, but he is talking exactly about that. And he believes that the study of these things, these elements, are the difference between success and failure. So let's look at some of the elements that he lists in terms of things that a good commander, a leader of an organization, needs to study. One is, which government has the right philosophy? Which commander has the right skill? Which season and place have advantage? Which method of command works? Which group of forces has the strength? Which officers and men have the training? Which reward and punishment make sense? So let's take it from the bottom and kind of look up. This is really organizational management that he's talking about. The last one was the reward and punishment that make sense. Well, that is compensation system. That's an important thing to understand and know about. The second one up is officers and men have the training. Training is important in any organization, any skill, any profession. You have to know your stuff and you need to work at training it. The next one is which groups of forces have strength. That is really understanding the strengths in your organization. Where do you have pockets of tremendous talent, people with resources that can achieve things that others can't? Understanding where those strengths are is very important. The next one up is the method of command that works. That also gets to a management style. What management style works, what management style doesn't. Going up from there, the season and place that have the advantage. Again, let's think about that in terms of the competitive marketplace that every organization operates in. Whether you are public, private, nonprofit, it really doesn't matter. There is a competitive marketplace for all of those things because people have choices in this world. Then you go up from there and you have which commander has the skill. That is really understanding your staff, your management team, and where those assets are, those strengths are that you need to take advantage of. And then the top one is which government has the right philosophy. Again, translating that is more about kind of strategic direction and organizational culture. I think when you take those things all together, he was really the first person that we have in writing who was saying to run an effective organization, you need to understand all of these things. And if you don't, you will not succeed. Very important lessons. Sun Tzu says you can foresee victory or defeat by planning. That is a pretty forward-looking statement right there. Planning is often overlooked, and it is an important thing, not so much because the plan will ever go exactly as you've laid it out, but because planning helps you think about scenarios and opportunities and options and obstacles in an important way. Sun Tzu also had some ideas on governance versus management. So when I use the term governance, I'm not saying government, I'm saying governance. And governance is the oversight that companies, governments, nonprofits all have. They all have some kind of a board of directors. That board of directors has a unique and specific set of things that they are tasked to do, which is separate from management. Governance focuses on financial oversight and strategic direction and policy. Management focuses on implementing the strategic direction and operating the organization. So they're two very different things. In Sun Tzu's writing, he talks about politicians, and that really is the stand-in for the governance role. In his world, there were generals and armies, and then there were politicians that basically had hired or enabled those generals and armies. And he talked about the interaction between the two of them. He was very clear. Now, of course, he's a general, so he's on one side of that divide. He was very clear that he felt politicians should stay out of the way of the generals and commanders so that they could do their job. Sun Tzu says, politicians don't understand the army's business. Still, they think they can run an army. This confuses the officers. He has a lot more in there about that, but he's very clear that he thinks that the politicians, as he puts them, or governance role as we would use that today, should set the broad direction and then allow the generals and the commanders, i.e. the management, to implement that and do it effectively. And those are real issues in any organization today, the difference between the governance and the management role. Sun Tzu also says victory comes from the following things. So it comes from using the both small and large forces, sharing the same goal, that's the mission piece that we talked about earlier, finding opportunity in challenges, having capable commanders and the government leaving them alone. That's sort of his formula for success. And it's a pretty interesting formula. So thank you for joining me today for talk about one of the books I really love, Sun Tzu's Art of War, thinking about what it says about the management of organizations. Please like, subscribe, and comment to this channel. All of that helps other people find this content. And hopefully this content can help others just like it hopefully has helped you. And please consider telling others about this channel, sharing this information. The more we share, the more we learn, the more we grow. Thank you so much.